Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to talk about coterminal angles. And all coterminal angles are angles that are written in standard position, which means we have our initial side of our angle along the x-axis. And then coterminal just means it's in the terminal angle, or the terminal side is in the same position, but it's more revolutions around. So for instance, here's a 90-degree angle, okay? But I could do another angle that's in the exact same position. So in other words, it has the x-axis as its starting point, but I rotate all the way around once for 360, then another 90. It's coterminal. So in other words, coterminal angles will always be 360 degrees bigger or 360 degrees smaller, bigger or smaller, or any multiple of 360 degrees bigger. So you can continue to add 360. So in the sense, 90 has infinitely many coterminal angles. One would be 400 and, because I'm adding 90 to 360 is what I'm going to do here, 450. I could add 360 again and get 810. I could add 360 again and get 1170. I could also subtract 360 from 90. If I subtracted 360 from 90, I'd get a negative 270. I could subtract 360 again and get negative 630, and so forth and so forth. All those are coterminal to a 90-degree angle. Now be careful, it says find the measure of a negative angle coterminal with 90. So I don't want to put in one of the positive, I'm going to put in one of these negatives. And usually I do the first one I come across, so I do a negative 270. But if you wanted to go further, I'm pretty sure IXL accepts them that are further. So again, if I want coterminal to 210 and I want it negative, what I'm going to do is just subtract 360 because I'm going to rotate around one time in the negative direction to get a negative angle. So that's going to be 0, 5, 1, and negative 150 would be my negative coterminal angle, negative 150. So again, for these angles written in degree measure, either add or subtract 360. But eventually we're going to get to radians. When you get to radians like this, you don't add 360 because you don't add degrees. You add radians. And what is one complete revolution around the circle in radian measure? It's 2 pi. So what you're going to start doing is adding 2 pi or subtracting 2 pi to this negative pi sixths. Now the best way to do this is, since most radians are written in fraction form, is let's write 2 pi as not 2 pi, but as 12 pi sixths, because then I have a common denominator. So I'm going to start adding and subtracting 12 pi sixths to negative pi 6. So if I subtracted it once, I'd have a negative 13 pi 6. If I subtracted it again, I'd have a negative 25 pi sixths. And if I started adding it, if I added 12 pi 6 to that, I'd get an 11 pi sixths. That's going to look a little weird. They're 11 pi sixths. If I added 12 pi 6 again, I would get 23 pi sixths. And I can continue to add 12 pi 6 to get more coterminal angles to this. This one asks for a positive angle. So again, I usually use the first one I run into, which is 11 pi sixths. And I come in here, do a fraction of 11 pi sixths. So as I move to this one, I'm going to start adding 4 pi halves, because 4 pi halves is 2 pi. I'm just getting a common denominator to make it easy. Then you just add the numerators together. So again, I could have a 7 pi halves. I could have an 11 pi halves. I could have a 15 pi halves, because I'm just adding 4 repetitively to this numerator. But since it asks for a negative, I'm going to subtract 4 pi halves. And what's 3 minus 4? Negative 1. So my answer would be a negative fraction of negative 1 pi. Now we don't need to do a 1 in front of the pi, but a negative pi halves. I could also do a negative 5 pi halves. Actually, let's plug that in there and see what happens, because that means I've minus 4 twice. And it works. So you can do higher orders, more revolutions around. Find a negative angle, coterminal angle to 2 pi thirds. So I'm going to take that 2 pi thirds and I'm going to start subtracting 6 pi thirds, because again, that's 2 pi with a denominator of 3. And when I subtract, what's 2 minus 6? It's a negative 4 pi thirds. And that's what I'll type in. If you have any questions on how to do this, please bring them to class. But just remember, you're adding, subtracting full rotations, either in 360 for degrees or in 2 pi for radian measure, until you get the type of angle you want. And you're done. And we will see you in class.